Your industry is changing. You already know that. AI is moving into finance departments, operations functions, procurement teams. Roles that have been stable for decades are now being restructured, automated, or eliminated entirely. And most professionals in those roles are doing one of two things. They're either ignoring it and hoping it passes, or they're panicking without any idea what to actually do next. This video is for neither of those groups. This video is for the person who is ready to act, because there is a tech career that was specifically built for your background. It pays between 55 and 85,000 pounds at entry to mid-level. It does not require you to code. It does not require a computer science degree. And right now, the demand for people who can do this job is significantly outpacing the supply of people who know it exists. It's called FinOps. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what it is, whether your background is a fit, and what your first step looks like. Let's start with what the word actually means. FinOps is a portmanteau, a combination of finance and operations. The full term is Cloud Financial Management, and at its core, it refers to the practice of bringing financial accountability and visibility to cloud computing spend. Now let me translate that into plain English. When a company moves its technology infrastructure to the cloud, and almost every company has now or is in the process of doing so, it starts receiving a bill from its cloud provider every single month. That cloud provider might be Amazon Web Services, which is AWS. It might be Microsoft Azure. It might be Google Cloud. And that bill, depending on the size of the company, might be tens of thousands of pounds per month. For large enterprises, it can be millions. The problem is that most companies have almost no visibility into whether they are spending that money efficiently. Cloud platforms are incredibly flexible. Teams can spin up new resources in minutes, provision storage on demand, run complex computing jobs with a few clicks, but that flexibility comes with a cost. Resources get left running when nobody's using them. Teams provision infrastructure and forget to switch it off. Budget owners in the finance team can't see which team is spending what or why. That is the problem. FinOps is the function that solves it. FinOps team sits at the intersection of three groups: the engineering teams who build and run the cloud infrastructure, the finance teams who manage the budget and need visibility, and the senior leadership who need to understand whether their cloud investment is delivering business value. The FinOps Analyst is the translator between all three. And that translation role, that ability to speak finance fluently and speak tech fluently enough to be credible, is exactly where non-technical professionals have a natural advantage. To understand why FinOps exists and why it's growing so fast, you need a brief history of how cloud computing changed the world. Before cloud, companies bought their own servers, physical hardware sitting in data centers. The cost was fixed, predictable, and managed by IT. When cloud arrived, starting with AWS in 2006, everything changed. Suddenly, companies could rent computing power rather than own it, scale up instantly, scale down when not needed, pay only for what they use. It was revolutionary, and companies adopted it at extraordinary speed. By 2019, global cloud spend had crossed $200 billion. By 2022, it was approaching $500 billion. By 2027, analysts project it will exceed $1 trillion annually. But here is what happened alongside that growth. Companies got very good at spinning up cloud resources. They got very bad at managing the cost of those resources. The FinOps Foundation, the global body that governs this profession, published data showing that on average, enterprises waste 32% of their cloud spend, not 5%, not 10%, 32% on a cloud bill of £1 million per month. That is £320,000 going directly into the bin every single month. That is the problem that created this profession. And it is not a small problem or a temporary one. It is a structural, ongoing, growing problem, because cloud adoption is still accelerating. AI workloads are making cloud bills larger and more complex, and the people who understand both finance and technology well enough to solve it are in critically short supply. That supply gap is your opportunity. Let's make this concrete. Here is what a FinOps analyst actually does on a working day. 8 o'clock in the morning, you open your cloud cost dashboard. This is a reporting tool. Think of it like a financial dashboard, but for cloud spend rather than revenue. You're scanning for anomalies, unexpected spike, unusual patterns. This morning there's a flag. One team's compute costs jumped £43,000 this week. You investigate. Untagged resources. A development team spun up testing infrastructure and didn't label it correctly, which means the cost isn't being allocated to the right budget. You flag it. You raise it with the team. You own the resolution. 10 o'clock. Engineering sync. You are in a meeting with the cloud architect and 2 developers. Your job in this room is not to be the budget police. Your job is to be the translator. The developers need to understand the cost impact of their decisions. You need to understand enough about what they're building to have a credible conversation. You agree on a tagging policy for the new environment. You set up a budget alert at 80% of threshold. The team leaves understanding more about cost. You leave with a problem resolved. 2 o'clock. You're building the monthly cloud cost report for the CFO and the engineering VP. This is where your finance background is most visible. The report covers total spend, budget variance, cost per product, savings identified versus savings realized, and recommendations for the next quarter. You've identified £31,000 in savings from right-sizing underutilized storage instances. That number goes in the report. That is your value made visible. 4 o'clock. Strategy session with the FinOps lead. You're planning the roadmap for moving from a reactive practice, responding to cost spike, to a proactive one. Commitment-based discount, reserved instance strategy, a savings plan for predictable workload. This is the senior end of the role, and it's where non-technical professionals who understand financial planning and governance are particularly strong. Here is the section I want you to pay the most attention to, because the number one reason non-technical professionals don't pursue roles like this is a belief that they are not qualified. That belief is wrong, and I'm going to show you why with specifics. If you work in finance and you manage a budget in FinOps, that translates directly to cloud budget governance. The mechanics are different. The skill is identical. If you perform variance analysis, comparing actual spend to forecast and explaining the gap to stakeholders, in FinOps, you perform spend anomaly detection. You compare actual cloud spend to expected spend and explain the variance to engineering and leadership. Identical skill, different context. If you manage vendor relationships and negotiate contracts, in FinOps, you manage relationships with AWS, Azure, or GCP. You negotiate enterprise discount agreements. You evaluate commitment-based pricing structures. Same skill, new vendor. If you produce management reports for senior stakeholders, in FinOps, you produce showback and chargeback reports. These are the cloud cost equivalent of management accounts pack. Same audience, same purpose, different underlying data. If you work in operations and you design and govern processes, in FinOps, you design tagging policies, cost allocation frameworks, and cloud governance standards. Same governance instinct applied to cloud infrastructure. If you're a project manager who coordinates cross functions, in FinOps, you are the connector between engineering, finance, and leadership. That cross-functional fluency is one of the most valued competencies in a FinOps team. You are not starting from zero. You are recontextualizing what you already know. The cloud knowledge, the FinOps framework, the certification takes weeks to build, not years. Let's talk numbers. At entry level, your first FinOps role with relevant transferable experience and the FinOps Foundation certification, you're looking at £45,000 to £60,000 in the UK and $70,000 to $90,000 in the US. That is a meaningful step up for most finance and operations professionals at that career stage. At senior level, 2 to 3 years in the role, the UK range moves to £60,000 to £80,000. US equivalent is £90,000 to £120,000. Lead and manager level, where you're running a FinOps practice rather than working within one, UK salaries reach £80,000 to £110,000. And if you move into independent consulting or contracting, UK day rates for experienced FinOps practitioners currently sit between £400 and £700 per day. 200-day working year, that is £80,000 to £140,000 annually, with the flexibility of working across multiple clients. The FinOps Certified Practitioner qualification, which costs $250 and takes 4 to 6 weeks of part-time study to prepare for, is consistently cited in hiring data as adding £8,000 to £15,000 to starting salary offers. That is one of the highest returns on certification investment of any qualification in the tech space right now. So what does the path actually look like? I'm going to give you a realistic, honest timeline, not a motivational version, an actual version. Phase 1 is Foundation. This takes roughly 4 weeks, 2 to 3 hours per week alongside your current role. You are building basic cloud literacy, understanding what the major cloud providers are, what the key services cost, why bills look the way they do. You are reading the FinOps Foundation framework, which is free and publicly available at finops.org. You do not need to pay for expensive courses at this stage. The free material is sufficient for phase 1. Phase 2 is certification, weeks 5 to 10. You are preparing for and sitting the FinOps Certified Practitioner exam. This is the globally recognized entry-level qualification for this field. It costs $250. It tests your understanding of the FinOps framework, cloud cost management principles, and how FinOps practices are implemented in organizations. Your finance and operations background gives you a significant advantage in the business context. Phase 3 is positioning. Weeks 11 to 14, you are rewriting your CV using the skills translation framework we covered earlier. You are repositioning your LinkedIn profile to reflect your transition into FinOps. You are building one portfolio piece, a mock cloud cost report using free tier cloud accounts that demonstrates applied knowledge, and you are beginning to apply for roles. That is 14 weeks from today to first application. 14 weeks of part-time work alongside your current job with no financial risk. That is what a realistic path looks like. If you've watched this far, one of two things is true. Either you've realized that FinOps is not for you, and that's genuinely useful information. Knowing what to rule out is as valuable as knowing what to pursue, or something in this video landed, a skill you recognize, a salary figure that changed how you're thinking about your options, a timeline that felt more achievable than you expected. If the second thing is true, I want you to do one thing before you close this tab. Not enroll in a course, not quit your job, not make any commitment at all. Just take the free quiz, gobeupwardly.tech FinOps. It takes 5 minutes. It looks at your background, your years of experience, your current function, your transferable skills, and it tells you whether FinOps is a strong fit, a partial fit, or a different role entirely would suit you better. No email required to start, no sales pitch at the end, just a clear answer to the question, is this the right move for you? The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. If this video was useful, subscribe. I put out new content every week on FinOps careers, cloud finance, and how non-technical professionals make the move into tech. I'll see you in the next one.